Good to go. Good morning. Good morning, Jasper. Good morning to everybody who's come in. Lovely to see a few familiar names. Thank you for joining us. Great to see a few new faces in there. Well, new names in there. Lovely to see your faces. I'm sure you're all looking beautiful and bright-eyed this morning. So thanks for joining you. For those of you that are new, let me just introduce CreateFuture really quickly. We are a design and innovation company. And welcome to our breakfast session. We do these monthly and we invite change makers from the world of brand, product and marketing to come and talk to us about things that they care about. And we're welcomed this morning by Jasper Martens from Pensionbee. And so we'll get to that to introduce Jasper properly in a second, but I just want to cover off a couple of housekeeping matters before we get started. So firstly, the session is being recorded. So if you do miss any, if you need to nip off to make yourself a coffee or you need to finish early, don't worry about it. We will be sending out a link after the session. If you enjoy it so much that you want to share it with all of your colleagues, we would love that as well. So you'll be getting a link to it when we've finished. In terms of the run through, we'll get started shortly in a minute. We're due to finish at 10:30. I'll allow at least 10-15 minutes for questions at the end, and we may break for questions halfway through as well. Please put your questions into the Q&A and not into the chat. And that way we can pick them up, sort through them and pose them to Jasper as we go and at the end. And then the last thing I want to say is, get this in early, is this is a monthly session. We've had some great talks already with Dropbox, with Pensionbee this week. And our next session is lining up to be fantastic. We've got Caroline Madison, who is with us now, who is the head of digital marketing for Penguin Random House. She's worked on some fantastic projects. She's great fun as well. So we're really looking forward to talking to her next month at the end of November. The sign up link will come out after this as well, or just keep an eye out for it in LinkedIn and Twitter and so on. So I think that's me on housekeeping. I hope everyone can hear us okay. Let's get started. So let's talk before I introduce Jasper. I just want to explain our relationship, Jasper, our nascent relationship. So I am a Pensionbee customer and I connected with Jasper. I can't remember if it was on Twitter or LinkedIn about 3 years ago, I would say. Being the fanboy that I am, I actually asked if I could come and visit them in their office, like I was visiting some sort of pensions Disneyland. And Jasper was kind enough to say yes and gave me a little tour of the office. I met some of his colleagues, Priel and Romy, their CEO. We've had a good friendly relationship since then. We don't work together despite my kind of repeated overtures, but we've definitely kind of kept in touch. So I thought before we get started, maybe Jasper, do you want to introduce yourself kind of personally, what's brought you to this kind of hallowed peak today, this highlight of your personal career this morning, and then we'll talk a little bit about Pensionbee.
Right, well, thanks for having me, Nathan. Jasper Martens, currently the CMO at Pensionbee. I joined the company in 2015. I was their first employee. It was the co-founders are Jonathan and Romy, and they thought they needed me, so they hired me. But before that, I worked in insurance, a company called Simply Business insurance provider in the UK. My background is in digital marketing. I've worked for lots of financial brands, I would say, over the course of the last 15 years. So that kind of not really disguising my age. But I think I kind of been drawn by working for a product that is perceived as difficult or boring. And how do you make that nice and exciting? I think that's, for some reason, became my mission, really. But before that, I also, my background is marketing, digital marketing in Amsterdam. Before I moved to the UK in 2009, I had a small marketing agency and worked with small business owners to improve their marketing. So yeah, that's a little bit me. I live in the southwest part of London since 2009.
How are you getting on this year? You're not getting too homesick?
Well, as you can see, I'm not in the office. Currently, our office actually closed for a bit before we reopen. I'm fine. I'm fine as it is. The only thing, of course, that is being very apparent to us all is how dependent we all are on traveling by plane or car or any journeys. And then suddenly COVID happens and they are being snapped, those connections. And but hey, I've got a nice house. I'm fine. we just get through this, right?
I think some of that travel, the unnecessary travel, it's great that it's gone away, but yeah, some of that stuff where you really want to connect and need to connect with people,
yeah,
definitely missing that. But as I say, sure, we'll get back to something in due course. So if you don't know Pensionbee, I'm really interested to know why you signed up for the webinar, but maybe you've got your reasons. I'm sure most of you will have heard of them. As I say, I'm a customer and a fan, but even taking that aside, I think most people in the industry have been really impressed with the company's positioning and with its growth. Recently broke the milestone of having 1 billion assets under management, multiple award-winning, probably one of the most liked brands, I would say, in financial services and fintech, which is no mean feat in this day and age. So I thought we'd kick off, Jasper, just by asking you to tell us a little bit about the Pensionbee story and how important brand building has been to that growth.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, Pensionbee started in 2015. The company was founded by Romy Savova and Jonathan Lister Parsons, especially Romy being the initiator, and it was born out of a problem she experienced herself. She couldn't really find a good and easy way to move two pensions from previous jobs into a new plan. She spoke to a couple of financial advisors. The pots weren't big enough, so they weren't interested. She ended up with one of the, I would say, existing providers that offers a SIP. Picked the wrong fund. That fund tanked a little bit. High management fee, didn't understand, and therefore felt like she could have done a much better job. And she worked as an investment banker. So that tells you everything. If you're an investment banker, you make a mistake, how easy it is for us all who are not an investment banker to make that mistake. So that's what started Pensionbee. Pensionbee makes pensions simple and engaging. And like I said, we combine your pensions from your previous jobs in a new online plan that you can manage on your phone or any device you like. And you can set up contributions in just a few clicks. And from the age of 55, you can also easily take out money out of your pension to fund your retirement. So I think that's in a nutshell what Pensionbee is and how it was born. We're currently with 125 employees, most of them now working remote, of course. And we've just, like you said, surpassed the £1 billion AUA mark. I think we're currently at 1.3 already. So it's growing by, I would say, 125 million a month. So I would say the growth is now accelerating. Close to 375,000 people have actually started to sign up with Pensionbee. So there's a lot of people. We've got over just around 100,000 active accounts. So between the 375 and 100, those people are in the process of actually getting their pensions across.
I want to know where I am in that number. I want to see.
You were quite early on in the process, I have to say.
And a special badge or something.
Yes. Well, maybe we should actually put like a little badge in your beehive. Like we've been, I think we starting that conversation back in 2017. I think it was June 2017. So that was just a year after we first had our first transfer over to Pensionbee. That was March 2016. Right. So you were just roughly a year later, I would say, coming to the party. So you were an early visitor.
So, and I was attracted, I remember when it came, was through the offer of consolidation, but equally, it was refreshing to see a challenger brand, in what had been a pretty stagnant space for a number of years. I mean, obviously I kind of follow the market from that point of view anyway, as well as looking at, from a professional point of view, as well as looking from a personal point of view. So how has the brand changed over that kind of that last 4 years then from very squarely being in a challenger brand and quite confrontational on some issues, I seem to remember as well,
yes,
to the way you are now?
So when we started Pensionbee, so we've always wanted to make pensions simple. So that really hasn't really changed. So we are on that mission, and I would say that's definitely the purpose, to give everybody a well-deserved retirement solution. However, from the start, it was very much positioned as consolidate your old workplace pensions into a new online plan. And that was also the sentence I've just used in our previous in my previous answer. However, as you are getting when customers coming to Pensionbee, what does happen is that if you listen to them, it means that they will ask for more. Like, what are you doing after the consolidation process? So no surprise there that over time, we have kind of evolved to become that more leading online pension provider proposition. One of the notable steps was us introducing an online drawdown service just 2 years ago, where you're not serving people in the midst of their careers, finding and moving jobs more than ever and solving that problem, but actually also starting to solve that problem of how do I access that pension? Because the reality is pension companies historically has made it super difficult to consolidate your pensions, unnecessarily complicated and lots of paperwork. With drawdown, when that was introduced with Pensions Freedom, they went exactly in the same direction, issuing lots of paperwork, charging you to take money out of your pension. So as a result, people are not trusting pension providers. And what do? At the age of 55, they take all of their money out and put it into an ISA. That gets them 0.1% interest rate. That's detrimental to their retirement outcome. So that was another problem we had to solve. But it was driven by the fact that you are solving that consolidation problem first. And then your customers who are coming on board are starting to ask for more. And that does really help you evolve your proposition. And that's why the brand has shifted more towards a leading online pension provider brand.
Yeah. So would you say actually your product development, as well as, so your product development, it sounds like has been led to an extent by kind of customer demand. But as you've kind of grown the numbers of people and broadened the range of customers that have joined you, has your brand language or brand personality changed, do you think, over that time to broaden the appeal?
So I think there's two things here. So we still want to be that challenger, that challenge an outdated pensions industry, but there is a more mature, like you're growing up, so you also, that approach changes a little bit more. So you challenge the industry. We are challenging the industry now more than ever by introducing products that customers really want. Mm-hmm. While maybe at the start we would have been a bit more, I would say, outspoken towards how other pension providers would behave, and we thought that was not fair. So I would say we've toned down that a little bit and actually let the product showcase that we're still that challenger. But as with the proposition, with the communication, what's happened over time is that a lot of customers were starting to knock on our doors, that we said, well, actually, we don't really offer a product suitable for you. But the more people knock on our doors, the more we start to then flesh out what those needs are. So we've just introduced a self-employed pension product, which is not necessarily the consolidation proposition we currently have.
So when you bring in those things in, which are maybe not like, maybe a part of the original mission, how do you make sure that they're kind of well integrated, so they feel Pensionbee?
I think as long as you make sure that your overall mission to make pensions simple and engaging for as many possible savers in the case you possibly can, that's quite a wide, I would say, umbrella. And as long as you make sure that the products you're introducing are really answering that kind of like centralized mission, that idea we have with Pensionbee, then it's okay. So for example, if you want to make pensions simple and engaging, it means that if you are introducing a self-employed pension product, it needs to take 2 minutes to open an account. It needs to be super simple. You also, if it's engaging, then you need to start talking to them from the moment they sign up. It's like, hey, by the way, how much do you want to put into your pension? And et cetera, and start helping them save for a better retirement. So it's actually making sure that fits really well. The same with withdrawal process. You can take money. We're testing this now with a couple of customers, and by turning your pension into an instant access account. So it doesn't take 2 weeks to draw down your pension. It takes 5 seconds. And that's that simplicity thing that you need to keep in mind when you're building these features.
Yeah. Would you say that's a kind of a core principle, that simplicity that drives what you do? Are there any other kind of like core principles you always come back to when you're considering, your behaviors, your actions, your development of product and service?
So I think, Simplicity is a big one. It's actually one of our 5 company values, which we all work towards too. Like, who wants 500 funds and ETFs and whatever to choose from for their retirement? I think some people will, but the majority of us won't. And if you are in this industry, you might sometimes get a bit drawn too much about, oh, we should offer this fund, oh, we should offer this option. And actually, like, are we developing a product for like Bearded Jasper from London, or is it a product for 47-year-old Miranda from Cardiff, who just happens to have 4 pensions and she wants to bring them together? It's making sure that you don't overcomplicate things. So simplicity is absolutely one of the key things. So that's why we offer 7 plans. We have the fee you pay is what you pay. There are no underlying, this whole layering about fund fee, platform fee, and then, it's like, people don't want that. What they do want is, I've got £150,000 slider, 150,000. Oh, that's the amount in pounds I'm paying for my pension every year, and make that really big in their face, like they see that. And I think that's simplicity for me. So, and I think the other thing to bear in mind is love. So we've spoken about it before. Love is one of our 5 company values, which is very unusual for a pension company. We love our colleagues, we love our team, we also love our customer. If you love your customer, you're doing everything possible to give them the product they really want. And they will love you back for it, because that's what's happening. If you don't love your customer and you're just thinking about them as unit economics, like how much money can I squeeze out of them, for example, or how much can I reduce the contact possibilities with our customers? So let's outsource the contact center to another country, for example. That's not loving your customer. So I think there's a lot of these values that is driving the way we either treat our customers, but also develop products for them.
Great. I've been on a couple of points. One, I still think there are companies out there who use the friction in the process to keep money in book.
Yeah.
And I know that's something that Pensionbee have campaigned against in the past, and actually, use that to drive you delivering a better series. I tell everybody about the time actually I got my first kind of transfer forms, and I got a big, thick. At some point it has to get physical. You get a pack sent through with all of my transfer forms, but Priyal had put little post-it notes in, like every other page, just telling me exactly where I needed to sign, and it was just that little touch that made the process much more simple and enjoyable for me. And that leads me on to one of the questions actually, Jessica, my colleague, has just asked, was like, the people and the culture. How's the culture at Pensionbee contributed to its success? How does it manifest itself in the product or the service?
So I think there's a couple of things to it. So first of all, make sure that the people you have in your company actually represent your customer base. Now that's a bit difficult for a young company where you actually attract quite a lot of young people, and we actually now 25% of our customers are over 50. So we are making sure that we are making up for that. But
so
put that aside.
Change your hiring policy then.
So in the hiring policy, that's really important. So for example, we are based in London. So London is quite a diverse group of people living in one city, but also the rest of the UK. So making sure you've got enough people from all sorts of backgrounds, walks of lives is like really important.
Mm-hmm.
So there shouldn't be a gender gap when it comes to pay. All of these things matter. So if you end up with a diverse workforce that represents the company, the customers you're trying to target, then guess what? You actually end up producing products that customers really want. So I think that's definitely one of those things. I think the big challenge for us is that in 5 years ago, I was employee number 1 and our founding team was 5 people. We're now at 125 people. I think by the end of next year, we will be over 200 people. Mm-hmm. Keeping that culture, company culture and cohesion alive, and without losing that, that's the challenge here. That's what's well, we put a lot of time and work in, especially now with COVID, where everybody's remote.
Yeah. Is there anything you've done this year that's been successful, or that you think that's that's helped you kind of keep that culture and people aligned with your mission?
Well, first of all, I think we've had quite a lot of discussion this year around diversity and inclusion in the company. Definitely. So show and tells, weekly breakfast sessions with the company. We're all checking in. We've had guest speakers coming in. So I guess we've done a lot on that side to address that and to talk about this in an open way, but also the hiring policy. So as we've been still hiring through this COVID pandemic, making sure that we hire the right people has been really important. And sometimes you have to hire remotely. I don't know about you, Nathan. That was the first time I've done that, hiring people remotely and sending a laptop through UPS to their home and then start working with each other. That's been the first.
Yeah, we've been through that.
Yeah, so it's been really, I think that's just been really an interesting experience. But yeah, it's really important that we keep that right. We've got weekly show and tells. First days at 5 p.m. The whole company comes together. We all get some snacks behind our laptops now instead of being in the room. And we talk about the work we've produced with each other. And that's also where we really will keep building that company culture.
Fantastic. So I want to get a little bit back and shifting back to customers. I think pensions is a really interesting space. You started as a challenger with a very defined need, but you're actually building a relationship with, I've had a relationship now with Pensionbee for 4 years, and I can see it lasting for decades. So is that daunting? How do you approach that task of caring for a customer over a period of time, and making sure that you're fit to serve people in very different kind of like life circumstances, potentially from the 40s right through to 70s, I guess,
Hopefully. Hopefully you will be with us for a long time. So
I
would say
my pension will run out in about 4 years at the current rate.
So on your question, it's about how do you take care of those? Yeah.
I mean, obviously the focus when you get people in is just on meeting that immediate need of consolidation.
Yeah.
Once you've got them, potentially a relationship for life.
Yes. So it's a responsibility. And I think that's how we look at it at Pensionbee. We feel very responsible for the fact that people are trusting their retirement savings with a company like Pensionbee, that we've built that trust with them. And yes, you're absolutely right. The consolidation experience, although it's not a new experience, like you could have consolidated 10 years ago. It was just very painful. We solved that problem, and we are trying to make it even better, and people are very happy for it. But then what's next? So it's really about listening to our customers. So whether it's qualitative, we interview at least 10 customers a week. We've got a team doing that. All the conversations our beekeepers have, which is your dedicated customer success manager. Whether it's a phone call, a live chat, or an email, is automatically tagged with the topic. So we can then kind of like collect that data on a weekly or on a monthly. But in a weekly, we've got a temperature check, and monthly, we've got a monthly pulse report. And it brings some of these topics and needs to the surface. And that helps us then to prioritize. Now, as your customer base is growing, they will automatically start to take the upper hand in terms of the needs and requirements they have. So first of all, that was drawdown. So a lot of customers were joining us and say, actually, I want to start exiting my pension in 4 years' time. I'm 51. How can I do this with you? No, from the start, you couldn't. So then you start listening to them and start putting them into a focus group and do some more deeper dive. We've got a design team with UX, UI designers, UX researchers, really digging into solving those problems. Sorry, that's a bit of a long answer, but your existing customers will tell you what they need. And over 50s needed an easy way to draw down. But the people in between need better ways to plan their retirement. So whether that is more transparency about their investments and their holdings, but also how much do I need to save for a good retirement? Sounds like an easy thing to answer. And people also joining us today in the session and working in pensions know that's not an easy answer, because it depends. So That's the challenge here. You need to keep listening to your customers, and then develop those products for them.
Actually, a couple of questions from David Hamill, who is a great UX researcher actually up in Edinburgh here. So he's asking, once you've got those ideas for, those needs, how do you make sure that they're presenting or delivered in the simplest way possible? And you mentioned one thing, you've got in-house sort of UX, UI.
Yeah.
But, how do you make sure these are delivered as simple as possible? And how do you do this with? This is an interesting one. With regulations like MiFID II, trying to make things transparent, but by exposing a lot of the complexity to customers. Oops, my webcam has gone. Can you still hear me, Jasper?
Yes, I can still hear you. The webcam is gone. That's fine.
I'll switch over to my backup webcam in a second. So I think really there's two questions about how do we keep things simple in the face of regulation, which is trying to, is rightly, wanting to expose more transparency. And I think there's another aspect here, which is, regulation. Is regulation, looking at regulation, a good driver for innovation, or is it a constraint?
So on the first note about simplicity, I think the easy answer here is that we do have quite a big in-house team. So our product designers and our product managers, we've got quite a bunch of them. And again, they've all been with Pensionbee for quite a while. So it feels like if you've got that inside knowledge, that's a really good starting point. But then we test it with our customers. So they've asked for a feature, and then we ship it in an alpha environment, and we invite early access customers, and then we have a chat. Like, it sounds really, really, really simple, but it's probably the best way. And you will be blown away by things you assumed that were simple, and they aren't. So at the moment, we're testing a product for over 55s to access their pension instantly. And you thought we had it all covered, and then they come up, and then you talk with 5 people, and 4 out of 5 ask the same question about how does this work then? And like, oh, okay. So I think that's the key thing. Your customers are asking for something. You're going to build something. Let's just ask them if this is what they want before you actually launch it and plaster it on billboards. So I think that's probably one of the key things that we've done with our over 55s product, our self-employed product that is currently went from alpha to beta recently. So it's now in beta group of customers. And we still uncovering things that we need to clarify a bit more. So I think that's the answer on the simplicity part.
So then the second part was really around regulation, and you can look at regulation as being stifling, or sometimes as driving innovation. And so what's Pensionbee's view there? I think I kind of can guess the answer here.
So I think regulations are there for a reason. And we've seen this year, unfortunately, due to coronavirus, that the number of scammers that try to scam people's pensions into very unsafe, unregulated funds, or ending up people with massive tax bills, it's gone up. So there needs to be regulation, right? Also, I think regulation is often driven by a need that the market hasn't been able to resolve. So when an FCA implements a particular regulatory requirement, it's probably because the pensions industry in this particular case couldn't be bothered to solve their problem and turn it better. So a regulator has to step in. So we have a good relationship with you've got your case managers, you are in touch with each other. I think they actually will fuel some of this innovation. So one of the things is, unfortunately, takes a long time, but the pension dashboard, things like disclosure of fees and transaction costs, people need to know. And I'm still absolutely blown away that up until today, there are still pension providers that will not disclose the exact amount of pounds and pence you pay for a financial product. It's just mind blowing. And the excuse of outdated systems, they knew that 10 years ago. So they've had 10 years to fix it. So I think they're not going to fix it. So a regulator will step in and then will say, actually, this is what needs to be done. So be it. So I'm actually quite happy with regulators. And a good example with regulation is that it's driving better retirement outcomes. So pathways where you have to choose as when you retire, what kind of pathway you want to choose. That's driven by the regulations. But I think it's a good thing because it has really sparked some innovations from our side in terms of, we've now introduced annuities, which we would not have introduced without that regulatory requirement coming in. Probably we would, but further down the line. So I think it's a good thing.
I know Romy is on a mission to make sure that everybody has and understands a pension. Yeah. And from a regulatory kind of point of view, we've got auto enrollment, which has brought a lot more people into the kind of pensions world. So where do you see pensions kind of going, the pensions products themselves going in the future?
Well, one second, just let me get my crystal ball. But it's, I would love to, in 10 years time, it would be fantastic if there was a dashboard where I could instantly see all my old pots, and then I can compare my old pots with some other providers and combine them to a plan that I feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And just easy. So that's how I look. In an even better world, we should have had a system where I've got my own pension pot, and when I join an employer, I would say, hey, here's my bank account for my salary. Hey, here's my pension account for my monthly pension contributions. Thank you very much. Because joining an employer and then being at the mercy of them picking my pension provider, I don't like, and I know why that happened. It's just because a very strong lobby from existing pension providers not to change the system. So in an ideal world, I think people should choose their own provider.
Just to see pensions almost as portable as a bank account.
Exactly. Because we are moving away from defined benefits pensions anyway, we are now in the world of having your own pension pot, a defined contribution pot, and you are more responsible now to put money in. Now, whether you like it or not, but that's where the world's going. And I think then let's make sure people have their own pots where they can put money in, whether that is employee contributions or whether that's their own contributions. And I can see it working for Pensionbee because I've got a Pensionbee plan where my employee pays in and I pay in myself. I can see how it works very well together and how you then can start putting projections in for the future. So I think that's the other thing. The other and like I said, a pension should be a long-term ISA. That's what a pension should be. It's a long-term savings account with massive tax advantages, and just positioning it that way and building a product that people will start to see it that way. I think that's where pension should be going.
Yeah, fantastic. I before we get to kind of questions in about 10 minutes or so, there's a couple of, I want to just ask you a couple of questions around your growth. So someone has actually asked here, I think it's an anonymous question, but I love it. Someone's saying, what's the secret to your digital marketing? And I was listening to a podcast this week about your, how you've had to shift your spend this year. So maybe we should talk about the campaign that you've recently launched. And I also want to talk then about, the challenges of rapid growth that you've seen. Has it actually been a blessing and a curse in any respects?
The last question, has it been a blessing or a curse? I think it's a blessing. As in, up until now, it's been a blessing. I can't predict the future, but I hope it will remain a blessing. We've been doubling in size every year. And if you double, you also double the amount of investment you can make to acquire new customers. So it's like a wheel that's set in motion. So as a blessing, it means that I can actually spend more money in particular areas that I really feel we need to spend money on. When we started Pensionbee, and that's not a secret, I think my marketing budget was, £100,000 a year. And that's not a lot. So I think that has definitely gone up. So it's been a blessing. The other thing, if it's a blessing when you grow this way, is that you've been taken seriously. So moving away from marketing as a brand, you're taken seriously. We are now in the Pension Dashboard Steering Group. We are a member of the ABI. We are also, customers are trusting you way more. We're not going away. We're not a one-day fly. So customers with bigger pension pots will actually...
That scale is important.
It's super important.
People are giving their life savings,
yes.
Huge sums of money to it.
Would you trust a pension startup with your life savings? I wouldn't. and I'm working for one. So, you know, how do you solve that problem? So I think, of course, there are many ways to solve that problem. For example, we don't manage the funds. BlackRock, Legal in General, HSBC, and State Street Global Advisor do. But still, having over 100,000 active accounts and winning awards and growing at that rate oozes trust. So I think that's definitely helpful. What we do have to be careful of is that we alter our model too much. So every customer gets their own personal beekeeper, which is a customer success manager. Now you can imagine that as we are doubling in size, we're also doubling the amount of beekeepers we will have available. And it's not the cheapest way to serve customers, but we still believe it's the best way to serve our customers and to keep them with us. So that's a challenge. Like, it's very tempting to outsource some of that work to an external partner, maybe out in another country. As soon as you do that, you're altering your model too much and customers won't be happy. And guess what? They will transfer out. So I think that's a challenge there.
How's Pensionbee's growth being funded? Do you take external investment, and does that, you know, place any demands on growth that you've had to?
Yeah, without going into much detail about the actual investors, like it's no secret that one of our external investors is State Street Global Advisors. So they're the biggest external shareholder at Pensionbee. We have a group of private investors who are funding Pensionbee. As you probably know, I can't spend all of this marketing money and all of this investment and growth with the AUA we have. If you work in this industry, you can do the maths that, you know, that doesn't work. But the revenue is rapidly increasing, and there is a clear path for profitability for this business. And I think that's been really helpful in how we fund Pensionbee now and to come, and until we, you know, the revenue will fund all of the things we want to do. And two, we've not have investors that have a really big influencing stake, like preference stuff, or all of that kind of things. And the reason is that we want to make sure that we remain as independent as possible. Because if you would take money from particular investors, I guess, like, I've not been involved in that process as much, but if you would do that and they suddenly want to change the course of the company for short-term profitability, for example, again, you won't love your customers. Yeah. So you can just might as well throw it out of the window altogether.
Fantastic. And am I right in thinking that this year, if you, I don't know, I've not been out of home much this year, to be honest, but when I have been, I've seen Pensionbee's latest campaign. Am I right in thinking that was your first large-scale out-of-home, or?
We did some stuff last year. I would say this year has been the biggest. What we've done is, where Pensionbee was initially quite focused on that solving that pension consolidation problem, as we are now growing and serving customers after they've joined Pensionbee on contributions, withdrawal, etc. Actually, we are that leading pension provider. So talking about just that consolidation thing doesn't really make any sense if you're growing up as a brand. Second thing is, other people will come to the market offering a similar proposition, similar product, and therefore your brand needs to be much more prominent in your advertising, and so you get that cut through. So we've asked our customers, how did Pensionbee make you feel when you signed up? And 99% of people, I wouldn't say use the same words, but they would like, oh, it's like a weight off my shoulder, right? Okay. This has solved my pension mess that I knew was in the back of my mind. So we make people pension confident. Yeah. That's what we do. And that was the key cornerstone of our campaign this year, that we also rolled out across all of our marketing channels, offline and digital. And yeah, I have to say that's been really, I'm very pleased with the results I'm seeing in terms of how we acquire customers. It has definitely lowered our customer acquisition costs, which is a very interesting learning, actually. be proud of your brand. If you feel it's a strong one, and you use it, and not just show a phone with a product on and with a yellow background on a billboard, because if you make it green, you might confuse it with another provider. And that's the kind of like lesson we've learned now as we are growing out of this product-led advertising, going much more in a brand-led advertising phase. We're seeing
it's great to hear that you can confidently attribute acquisition to that, and cost per acquisition to to put money behind the brand building.
Yeah. So for example, with TV advertising, which we've done, we also use that brand concept a lot more. We measure all site visits and app installs and app downloads in the first 6 minutes after a TV has added. So we upload our TV schedule into our data sets, and then we look at the 6 minutes. We subtract all the digital activity, which is your UTM codes. You can get rid of. You're left with, I would say, the remaining part of that little peak you can see 6 minutes after the TV ad. You've got a baseline, your 6 months average of site visits, so you subtract that. What's left is your TV traffic. You attribute that to your model because people leave cookies on the website, so we also know who it is. So we know the TV customer age, we know what their pension pot size is, we know how many touch points they have before they sign up, but also how much they engage with the app and the website. And we can do that for each of the marketing channels. So when we run this campaign and we swapped a very product-led TV ad over to a much more brand-led pension confidence campaign, suddenly we could see the bump much higher and lasting a little bit longer. And guess what? The customers who joined us were a little bit older than before, and they were transferring more pension pots. More pensions over to us. It's fascinating if you are able to do it that way. And we tested 7 creatives at one stage in a month, and really good to see the bumps, how the bumps did. That's the kind of stuff you need to get to in order to really test drive if what you're trying to communicate works.
I have a vision of you sat on your sofa watching telly, waiting for your adverts to come in with the analytics open on a laptop alongside you.
Yeah, we've got a customer Slack channel where we see all the customers signing up, and yeah, I know there's been probably some checking in going on with some popcorn just to see what happens when you are on channel 4 just after the weather forecast.
I'm going to, I could chat forever, but I don't want to monopolize your time. We've got about sort of 17 minutes left, and I've had some great questions in. So if you give me 2 seconds, I'm just going to have a quick skim here. So Josh Ward's asking, so Jasper mentioned Pensionbee speaks to around 10 customers a week. So how does that work practically? Yeah, and how do the insights that get shared, how do you share those insights across the business? So
first of all, we've got a voice of the customer team. It's 2 people. And their sole purpose at Pensionbee is to let the voice of the customer heard within the company. I wouldn't say that's all they do. That's quite a lot they do, but that's really important. They also interview those customers. We're currently now mostly on Zoom, and you've mentioned Priol. Priol's actually part of that in that team. So she actually speaks to a lot of customers, and normally pre-corona travels to customers to speak. Translating that into, so how do we then bring that to life in the company? Now, first of all, common themes you pick up are being picked up in a monthly pulse report. So those themes are then being picked up and being discussed. Also, some of these interviews will be then transcribed or being presented in full. So a selection of those in that pulse report. So everybody will read that pulse report and get to know that.
Filtered and proper voice of the customer. Yeah. And
then also in our show and tell, we have an item, customer voice. So that's where a customer will be brought on the screen with a photo, and that's where Priel or somebody else will talk about, well, I've spoken to this customer and this is the kind of like challenges they face, etc., etc. So I think that's kind of like one of the ways we bring that feedback we receive from customers to life.
Are you still of a size where you can have all hands? Do you have all hands meetings and town halls with every? Do you still have a size where you can have all hands? With Romy and Dan.
Yeah. So I think, and we're trying to keep that alive as long as we possibly can. Like our town hall meeting, our show and tell, everybody attends. So it's a weekly point where we come together. The feedback, so put the interviews aside, Trustpilot feedback, Google App Store review feedback. We've got a feedback channel in Slack. Everybody will see every bit of feedback that's coming through that channel. And when it's a 1-star review instead of a 5-star, which we also do get, I wouldn't say the alarm button goes off, but actually, yes, it does still go off. Like, we've got a specific team who will then contact that particular person and discuss what actually happened. This is not about hiding stuff. This is about, damn, we've done something wrong here. I'm so sorry. Can you tell me what happened? And it's not about, and of course you want to resolve it individually with that customer, but what you also want is something in the system didn't really work out. They fell through the cracks. What's going on there? So that will drive the product roadmap. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we've got a question from Ben Hampton who's asking. So this is something I want to talk about. So people may think about consolidating or tidying up their pensions. However, I can imagine it falls down the to-do list.
Yeah.
A little bit at the back of the mind, you know. So how do you help convince and encourage customers to act now? And is this really the kind of cold and warm purchasing?
So it's a good question, Ben. Like, it's one of those nagging things, tasks, and you always think, you know what, I'm going to do that on a Sunday afternoon when it's raining, but then it's Sunday afternoon and it's raining, and then you will be not watching Netflix instead. So how do you turn that around? There's no urgency. It can wait, right? So I think pensions has always been perceived as difficult, too far away, too complicated. I just put it somewhere else. It's a cold purchase. It's not a Ferrari. We're not buying a nice new car here, right? So it's about turning an otherwise cold product into a warm and exciting experience. That's what it's all about. So once you, like we've talked about, the emotion that our customers get when they actually are consolidating, that like, oh, it's done now, and the confidence that they've actually going into the right direction. That feeling, if you can bring that to your prospect where they're not a customer yet, that's what triggers them. And then they will actually experiencing that. I think the problem we've had with some pension providers in the past is that they try to replicate that. And then you go to their consolidation page. Oh my God. You're being turned off because there's like 20 tick boxes to tick, and there's oh, by the way, you've done this digitally, but hey, we will send you a pack in the post and you can read every detail. That's not what customers want. So it's really turning them from cold into a warm experience, getting them really warmed up and excited about the fact that they are now on top of it, and then stay true to your word. If we want to make pensions simple and engaging, keep it simple and engaging. And I think that's the thing. The last thing I would say is to act now. One of the things that we have communicated is how not consolidating, how that can damage your retirement outcome in the long term. So it's not just about fees, by the way, but you are actually saving on fees. But it's about not knowing how much you exactly have saved. That's damning for the future, isn't it? So that's what we're trying to do with our calculator planners, etc. They see that like, oh wow, I want that. Can I have a slice of that? And then they sign up.
Fantastic answer, thank you. I think Dave's asked actually is a little, again, we're getting back to the kind of innovation, I think, and you know, this shift from a challenger to a leading pension provider. Do you think that large established pension providers, you know, can catch up, you know, or replicate easily the fintech style experience that you have and you deliver? There's a lot to unpack there, whether it's kind of legacy systems or culture.
Gosh, well, first of all, they've got legacy systems, which is always difficult, but I think they've had now 10, 20 years to actually change that. And if they still haven't done that, then, you know, that probably will say more about number two, their culture. And it's about people who might have been in the industry for a long time and just unwilling to change. What you often see with not just pension providers, banks are also really good examples. They hire a head of innovation, or they hire somebody who wants to drive innovation for the company, but they're not replacing the decision makers who've been in their seats for God knows how long and will tell to you, oh, this is the way we've done it always. We're not going to change. So I think if you can change that, the third thing I would say, legacy providers don't come up with a separate unit and say, This is the fancy part of the side of the business. This is the, too big to fail kind of part. This is the fancy part of the business. Let's just do this. And then, like, I'm not going to mention any names, but in the banking side, we've seen some high street banks opening up like Me Too's for Starling and Monzo's.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely, you're pissing your pants. Like there's like, you've got this like fancy, they've got their fancy office. They got a nice brick wall, just like you, lots of young people. And they're like, yeah, we are changing the world. Guess what? 6 months later, the big mother company steps in, so like didn't make enough money and they shut it down. Like, I think try to avoid that is probably good. Yeah. So,
because you've left the customers that you have attracted there are high value. They're the early adopters, and they're probably the people who are going to be your customers of the future. And
yes,
I guess they're left abandoned to an extent when those things fail.
Yeah. So I think for bigger companies wanting to make that change, it's like you have to make that change from within, and it's about why are we keep questioning things. Why are we sending this pack in the post? Why are we killing trees for this? Can we do that differently? And having the right people in the room is probably the second part, the culture. So change from within and make sure the culture is right. Yeah. If you're not changing the culture and it remains as toxic as some companies are, then you're not going to change it.
And again, just to reiterate, if anyone was here, I do really like, the strides, from Romy designing a product that she needed, from day one, but then ensuring that as you've grown, your workforce represents the people that you're designing for. Yeah, rather than
yeah, absolutely. It's just, I'm just always more blown away by how it's not enough to put, for example, if you want to attract more female savers, because that's been an issue in the industry for quite a long time. Female pension savers are underrepresented, but actually when they do save for they're actually much better decision makers. So it's something you want to. Well, it's not enough to put a woman on an ad. It's not enough. You need to make sure that the people you have represents the customers you're trying to attract. And simply putting a nice picture on a billboard isn't going to solve that problem.
How does product design work and feature design work within? I know you've got a steady influx of kind of suggestions from customers, but how do you turn that into reality? Do you have a dedicated team, or do you bring people in from across the business to collaborate on?
Both. So we've got functional teams and project teams. So, for example, to give you an example, in our product and marketing team that I'm part of, we've got an acquisition team, a brand and comms team, we've got a product team, and we've got a design team. I will call them the 4 bubbles. And in each of the bubbles, we've got, in the design, we've got a head of design, a UX UI designer, we've got all of the people there. Those are functional teams. So that's their function in the organization. However, we've got some project teams. We've got project growth, team growth. We've got team CX, customer experience. We've got team business, is basically keep the lights on that nothing breaks and make things more efficient. We've got team CX, is customer experience. And that their aim is that they want to reduce the number of questions customers will ask us when they and after they've joined us. So that's one of the objectives they have. So they will produce features. And team growth is about how do I acquire as many customers as I possibly can, or increase the AUA, etc. So those are project teams, and then people from functional teams come together to solve those problems.
Great. I'm smiling because I think Jessica will be watching this, and we're introducing circles as a new kind of
bubbles, circles.
We'll maybe shift into bubbles in the future as a new kind of way of organising ourselves. Dave, again, my other colleague, Dave's asked, how much should customers? This is a great question. How much should customers engage with their pensions once it's set up? Is there a negative side to having customers that are highly engaged with their pension?
I like that question a lot, because a lot of people in the pensions industry will say, "Ooh, too much engagement." They don't need to know. The product is designed to put it away and then forget about it, right?
You can be nervous when you see the fluctuations. You can get nervous in a year like this year with lots of change.
Yeah, so you've got a beehive and you've got a life pension balance, and things fluctuate. So guess what? You need to educate your customers what that actually means, and how that short-term swings will not influence your long-term outcome. And a lot of people are not educated enough in the UK about these things. Like, I'm from the Netherlands, we get this educated in secondary school, and you know, hardly anybody in the Netherlands owns a credit card, and we all save. Like, compared to here, it's a completely different situation, isn't it? So, don't want to bash about the UK, by the way, but it's about educating your customers what that actually means. Some customers log in 10, 12 times a month in their app to see how it's doing, but they also put money in. So the engagement actually will increase. When the markets went down with the first wave, guess what happened? A lot of our customers are now, they've seen it now before, they just contributed more money. For them, it was more like, they almost treat it like a discount. Like, the markets have now low, so maybe this is the time now to put some money in. That might actually be a good thing. And guess what? They're probably right. So no, I disagree with people on that profoundly. Like, that's not what our customers are telling us.
A couple of quick questions, quick fire ones. How does your growth strategy look like? Well, the second part of this question. So will you continue focusing on the UK market?
So predominantly UK, yes, because it's such a big market, especially now everybody has workplace pensions. So yes, the answer is UK predominantly. However, we are looking at other countries. The reality is that with pensions, you've got that like an Italian pension system is completely different from a UK one. So you can't always go to other countries. Yes, a bank account like the Monzo's, the Revolut, is much easier to multiply in other countries than a pension. But yes, international expansion is on our cards, but it's not at the moment. I'm just super busy with doubling. Well, we're still projected to double every year for next year as well. We will be double the size. It's enough cake it's enough slices in the pension pie in the UK.
Very quickly before I wrap up, Anonymous is hiding behind this question. So are there any other financial services Pensionbee would like to disrupt?
Oh,
what else?
Well, first of all, the drawdown market. That's, I know it's pensions, but taking money out.
You're creeping into savings and banking. You know,
yes. So this is about. I think if treating pension as a long-term savings account is definitely something that we started to get more in. Our over 50s signing up a year ago, that might have been 12-30% on daily signups. That's now 25% or more is over 50 every day signing up to Pensionbee. So it's definitely that. I think we will be very busy with being the best possible online pension provider and being that specialist. I'd rather just stick with that rather than offering a SIP with hundreds of funds or offering ISAs, etc. But do keep your eye open on things like, children's products or ELISA possibly. Those kinds of things are on the cards.
I just really want to get this last one in. Is there anything you would have done differently in the last 4 or 5 years at Pensionbee?
Well, we all make mistakes. I certainly did. I think my most expensive mistake was £30,000 a couple of years ago with choosing a wrong marketing platform. But from a Pensionbee perspective, I say we should have listened to the over 50s earlier on. Yeah. I think when we started,
such a bright new thing when you started,
Yeah, we were very much seen as a millennial, and our average age of our customers was 34 at the time, which was great.
Crazy for a pension.
Yes, but the thing is, like, we also want to help people later on in their life, and they just weren't really trusting us and getting attracted to us. So building trust and all of these things, I know it takes time. You can't mature cheese faster, right? There's so much maturity you can force, but it's like, I'm from the Netherlands, cheese. I would say that's the mistake I've made. I should have listened to the over 50s earlier.
I could do a whole other hour, I think, chatting about the misunderstanding the needs of the kind of 45, 55, 65, and the assumptions that we bring into that. But maybe that's for another session. So I just want to say thank you, Jasper. As ever, I've really enjoyed chatting to you. We'll do whiskey and martial arts next time. And thanks everybody for firing in the questions. I didn't get to all of them, but I think we did cover most of the topics that people were asking. I'm happy to connect you to Jasper if you want to kind of email me directly, and I'll pass those on and kind of make some connections. I'm sure Jasper would be happy with that as well. So it just remains for me to say thank you one more time. I just want to say that the recording will be available as soon as we can just get it rendered and available to share with everyone. So we'll send that out to all the attendees by email. Please share it, and please sign up for the next one with Caroline Madison from Penguin Random House, which is on November the 27th. I think I've got that right, but check the details in the email that's going to follow. Enjoy your Fridays, everybody. Stay safe, and you know, keep in touch. Follow up with us if you've got any questions, and otherwise we'll see you next month.
Thank you.